I smashed 2 more small pads this month, so let's see what I ended up making with these guys. Hey guys, it's Beth. Welcome. This is the Smash Those Small Pads collaboration. It's a collaboration I do with my friend Sarah, who's crafting and relaxing here on YouTube, and Kathy, who's Stampin' Cat on Instagram. Just a couple of us, we get together each month and try to use up some pads smaller than 12 by 12. This month, I picked out 2 6x6 pads. They're both sports themed. And I knew what I wanted. I've known what I wanted to do with them since I bought them from Echo Park. And I just hadn't taken the time. So decided that this was going to be the month. So they're both by Echo Park. This is basketball and football. I also had the football stamps to go with this. Touchdown stamp. And I can't remember. I think I had this before. I think I ended up getting this separate, and I believe it might have been in one of the warehouse boxes, the mystery boxes. So I just, I picked these up whenever they had one of their warehouse sales, like so many small pads, like the more small pads you buy, the cheaper they are. So I knew that I wanted to make mini albums out of both of these. And what I did to kind of challenge myself, but also just to use up what I had, is I went through my stash of like mini album pages, things that I could make mini albums and pages out of. So the first one that I did, I had a few of these chipboard journals, is what they were called, left from Michael's from years ago, 2012. And I had picked them all up for like 50 cents. And it's just 4 chipboard pages, and then each one came with 1 binder ring, because there was, in the chipboard page, there was 1 hole up in like the top corner. So I decided to use these for the football albums, but I changed it up a little bit. So I took my 4 pieces of chipboard, and then after I made my album, I ended up adding 3 holes so that I could add 3 binder rings and make it more of a book style. So these 2 are pretty much exactly the same, because in the football pad, you had 8 designs. Is that right? No, 6 designs and 4 pages of each design. So what I was able to do is take, my 2 sets of the 6 different designs, and like I just used the back side for 1 6, and then that gave me a whole nother set to make a second album, if that makes any sense. So I kept the front kind of simple, low key. I just took some of the cut aparts. There was a sheet of like 2x2 cut aparts, and then a sheet of some 2x3 cut aparts. Used my stamp down here as my title, and then when I had put my brown cardstock strip on here and had put my stamped word, I was like, it needs something, and I had some scrap white cardstock sitting nearby, so I was like, I'll just cut some thin strips. And then after I did it, I realized, well, it's kind of like the football, so that was kind of a very happy accident. But I did bring in cardstock. Sometimes I matted my chipboard page with cardstock and then added the pattern paper. Sometimes I used just the pattern paper, because these are about 6x6, the chipboard pieces were. So that worked out fine for this one. So I do have a couple pocket pages, and then I used some of the cardstock I had left over to create card mats. These little 2x3 cut aparts, I ended up matting on white. Well, one, because the back side was it was a pattern, and I wanted someone to be able to write on the back of them if they wanted to, but also it just made them a little bit bigger. And then I used the 2x2 cut aparts throughout to kind of help decorate the pages. This one, I did bring in a stamp. I stamped onto like the basketball like texture, what looks like the basketball texture pattern paper, and then just punched that out. I was trying to use scraps kind of as I went as well, so brought in some scraps on some of the pages. This is a lift the flap. And then I left these up and I kind of folded them so that you could see that they were up, so that if someone sticks a photo on here, then they know they can slide it behind these, that it would still fit. So this was another pocket page, and when I got to this point, I was trying to use up the last of those 2x2, so I just added 3 of them on there. And again, I have some card mats, and then some of them like open like a booklet, so you can even add more photos on there. Matted one of the cut aparts and then just left this one. But you can see their pattern on the back, so you couldn't really write, but. And I just did a side pocket on this one just to kind of mix it up a little bit. And then the back, I didn't add any embellishments just because it's the back side. If someone wants to put a picture on there, they can. Otherwise, it can just be clean so that if it's going in a shelf, you know, a picture won't pop off of there. So this one is exactly the same. So I got 2 of those albums, and then I had some scraps left. So I decided to make some 3x3 Post-it note holders. And so I took the Post-it note holder, it's like 3 1/4 inches wide. And then when you fold it up, it's 3 1/4 inches tall for the front and back. So I just took some of the brown cardstock scraps I had, cut it to 3 1/8 inches, and then I was able to cut my pattern paper into 3x3 squares, and that gave me, you know, I could get 2 Post-its out of it because, you know, I needed 2 pieces for each one. And then I took one of the cut aparts, one of the 2x2 cut aparts, matted it on white and put it on the front, and then had this one left, so I just threw it on the inside. And then I did still have a couple cut aparts left and 1 scrap, and I'm going to save this because I do have some other football paper in my stash, and I thought these might be able to go with that, so I will just put these in my stash and use them. And then I had also stamped out a bunch of the footballs that I can fussy cut out, and I ended up using, I think, 1 or something in there and didn't use the rest of them. So those will go back in my stash. So 2 chipboard albums and 2 Post-it note pads. So for basketball, I had some envelopes that were 6 1/2 inches square, I think. So I knew I was going to need to mat these papers in order to use them on the pages. And I also, and I don't know where they came from. I think I must have thrifted these bigger square envelopes. And then I also had these smaller ones in my stash from Hobby Lobby for 99 cents. And these are like 5 1/2 inch squares. So what I did is I have one page in here that I just used one of the smaller albums just to give like a different kind of page. So again, these are exactly the same. I just used a total of 5 envelopes. I had 8 of the big ones, and so I just did 4 for each album and then brought in these smaller ones just to have an extra page. So a total of, 10 pages. So the front page, I just backed the full piece of the pattern paper on some black cardstock. This is an old Creative Memories border strip that I had in my stash. I decided to use it up. This was a 2x2 cut apart that I just fussy cut out the jersey, and then took one of the 2x3 cut aparts and did a double mat as the title. So throughout here, the bigger envelopes always have a cardstock mat because, the pattern paper wasn't going to cover the full page, and I didn't want that much of a white border. So here for the pocket pages, I decided to go with a diagonal pocket and just kind of decorated this one up. These are some more of those old Creative Memory stickers. Again, with the journal cards, some of them I matted on white just to make them bigger, but at least this pattern you could write on if you wanted to. And then brought in some of the scrap cardstock for mats, and again, made little booklets for extra photo storage. This one, I just used one of the 2x2 cut aparts here on the side. Down here with the cut apart. And you could see I've also used like strips that I had as scraps, trying to use some of those up as well. This one I didn't really add anything else to it just because it's such a small page. I wanted there still to be room for a photo, and you could potentially put a vertical or horizontal photo on here. And on this one, since it was protected inside the album, I did cut off the very end of the envelope so it can be used as a pocket for additional photo mats. This one, I just used one of the cut-aparts, but I left it unglued at the bottom so something could tuck underneath it. This one, this is pattern paper, believe it or not. It's just the back side of a pattern. And I had already used the front side somewhere, so I just decided to use the back. And then brought in some more strips and a cut-apart. Did another diagonal pocket page. This is actually the other side of this pattern, and so I changed it up just from the fact that I used the different pattern. And then my cut apart, and then here's a couple of the other cut aparts. Again, matted one on white, one left one. This page is pretty simple, and then the back side is pretty simple, and I'm debating about whether or not if I want to leave it like this and give them the option that they could put a photo on there if they wanted to, or I thought about doing a vinyl like cutout of like a basketball player, kind of like if I did something like this silhouette of one of the players, you know, in action, if I put something on that on the back, but then that kind of prohibits somebody. I was originally thinking that I would put it to, you know, that it would be like full size, at least like 5 inches, 5.5 inches tall or whatever. So that would prohibit them from putting a photo back here. So I don't know if I want to do maybe just a smaller silhouette and then it can still just be the plain back, or they could add photos if they wanted to, their choice. So again, 2 of the same albums. And I had I ended up with 2 full sheets of this basketball pattern paper left. So again, I did a Post-it note holder and matted it on the black just to help it pop and to fill in some of the white space. And then I had this 2x2 cut apart left, and since it was the same pattern as the background pattern paper, I matted it on black. And then I had 2 like scraps of some of the paper left, and so I just took it, cut it in half so that I could spread it across the whole front of the Post-it pad just to kind of give some more detail on the front. Same thing, I just used the red side of this particular scrap. And then I still had a sheet left of the basketballs. And so I took it and cut it down to, I do have a 4 by 5.25 inch mat. And then this is the 2-inch strip that was left after cutting the mat. I just flipped it over so you got like the different patterns showing. I had an additional strip left of this red, and then I had 2 of this shoe cut apart left. And so I just flipped one over to kind of act as a mat, used the other one, and then used a little scrap here and a little scrap there. So this one, I got 1 extra thing out of the pad. So 2 pads used, 4 mini albums, 4 Post-it note holders, and I do plan on selling the albums and the Post-it notes in our Etsy shop or at our craft shows. So this will work as inventory for our upcoming fall shows. So hope you guys enjoyed these projects. I'm excited that I did finally get these 2 pads out of my stash. Be sure to check out what Sarah and Kathy have made this month using their small pads. We always tend to do different kind of projects, so that's always neat to see. Their links will be in the description box below. Thank you guys so very much for your time today, and hope you all have a very crafty day.